All right, guys, this is part two of the Iran chapter. I know it was 6 months when I first started this, and I had to break it into two. I'm looking at it now. I might need to break it into three, but I really need to get this out because there are, as you can see, a lot of rumblings of a imminent strike on Iran. U.S. empire is going absolutely insane. Well, not so much insane. It's doing what it needs to do, which is, go bomb, kill, and steal other people's shit. So looks like they want a second 12-day war with Iran. I don't know how this is gonna. I don't know why they would even do this after the way the first one went. But we'll just go over what happened in the first 12-day war after Operation True Promise 3, and then we'll just get caught up to the present day. So let's get started. So again, Operation True Promise 3, and Trump calls on Tehran to negotiate before it's too late as Israeli strikes intensify. So what triggered it? Israeli surprise airstrikes on Iranian nuclear military sites during negotiations with the U.S. Again, negotiations. Iran promised a harsh response, and that was June 13th, 2025. So looks like that harsh response came. And let's take a look here and see how everything went. So I put this here was the IAEA compromise with dirty tests and false positives. Just hold off on that, because there was talk of the IAEA reporting back sensitive details for the strike for these purposes. So another Western compromise institution to be used in that way. It's like everything that comes out of UN is compromised now and like has a the West has just totally compromised it. So Trump said he would decide whether to go to war with Iran within 2 weeks, which was a total ruse, right? So again, let's circle back to that IAEA real quick. So this is Maria Zakharova. She said she's the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, and she said the U.S. and Israel dealt colossal damage to the UN nuclear watchdog, and she seems to believe that that's what happened. So let's take a look here and let's look at the highlights. She said that the fact that the Iranian nuclear facilities under the control of the IAEA have become targets for American and Israeli missiles is an open challenge to the NPT. The UN nuclear watchdog own resolutions declare attacks on nuclear sites illegal under international law. Again, the West just totally violates international law, but they use their media to control the minds of the masses to make you think that everybody else is breaking the law and not them. So this is why Western media is just toxic. You can't rely on that alone. You have to get perspective from multiple different sources. You know what I mean? So here's some more footage from Haifa. We got Laura Babo and Trita Parsi saying something. Laura Babo says Iran hits Haifa hard today. Hypersonics hit the city. Oil refineries, electricity infrastructure, and other targets reportedly hit. And Trita Parsi says this Iranian missile just hit Haifa, the lifeline of Israel's economy. It appears that the electricity in the entire city went out after the blast. Trump associated himself with Israel's war when it looked like a home run. Now, when it turns messy, perhaps he'll reconsider. So let's look at this footage. All right, so here's some picture of the damage, more picture of the damage, more picture of the damage, residential neighborhoods. Almost got them looking like Gaza. Not quite, though. But what does this tell you? Like, what's going on with the Iron Dome and Israeli air defenses? I thought these Patriot batteries were the A grade, top of the line, unpenetratable. Again, we see the myth of Western military dominance. And somebody here, they're fucking turning us into Gaza, translated from Hebrew. How about that? So I got a clip here from Jamal Thomas and Leif LaRouche discussing the aftermath of the exchange. Let's hear what Leif has to say.
Give me your take on this. From my point of view, if you're Palestine TV, from my point of view, Israel and the U.S. was surprised. They thought that the Iranian government was weaker, or they could overthrow the government in a short, blunt attack using Mossad, CIA, whack jobs internally to the country itself, fifth column, and external attacks and decapitation strikes. That didn't happen. And they found themselves in a war of attrition with a country that was 3 times the size of Iraq. I mean, you're talking about a country of 90 million people versus a country of 8. And they were incapable of dealing the damage necessary in order to stop it. So financially, economically, militarily, they were defeated. They had to stop. And the U.S.'s entry into the war was that threat of, I'm saving my client because my client can't keep going. Israel had been putting out ceasefire offers. Give me your take on that. Do you see it that way? How do you view it?
Well, rationally, the United States and the Zionist colony use all the weapons they have below the nuclear threshold, all the tricks that they've used before on Iran. And the result was that Iran fought back. You know, we can take the attacks by Trump as an indicator of really what happened. So let's look at this way. The Zionists attacked Iran. Iran bombed back the colony. They cried. The emperor had to come to save them, but he couldn't use any of his assets on the ground in the region in fear of mass casualties in American soldiers and or the destruction of the oil fields and gas fields that the United States has been looting for the last 80 years and the collapse of those vassal regimes in the Arabian Peninsula. So what did Trump do? He flew B-2 bombers, not from Diego Garcia, because he was scared even Diego Garcia can be reached, the island chain across from India, can be reached by Iran's missiles and can be destroyed. So he flew B-2 bombers with the largest bombs in the cache of weapons that the United States has below the nuclear threshold. He threw 16 out of the 20 that are available to the US, those mock bombs. They only have 20 of them in the whole military of the United States. He used 16 of them to attack the nuclear sites of Iran and failed to achieve his objectives. Therefore, he retreated, and Iran had 2 choices in front of it: to whip the behind of the United States and the Zionist colony in front of the whole world and humiliate them further, edging them closer to the use of a nuclear weapon, okay, and or take the win and do a symbolic attack on a base, the largest air base that the United States has outside this territory, in Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, giving everybody a heads up that is coming, where the United States withdraw all its soldiers and set up all the air defenses that it can, and then sending 16 missiles, only one of them being a hypersonic strategic missile, and it managed to hit the storage units of the weapons that the U.S. had to leave behind it. It couldn't take all its weapons. It had to only run away with the soldiers, and the jet fuel, storage areas, clearly showing that Iran can destroy all American bases if it wants to in the region. Right.
So, yeah, that was Latham Maruth giving a commentary on the aftermath. So, Israelis were banned from leaving Israel. Can't have a settler colony without settlers, right? But what does that tell you? That they wouldn't let folks leave, right? They're dependent on them, right, to be there and to colonize that space, So Israel tells airlines not to let Israeli citizens leave even once repatriation flights start. Crazy. They being held hostage. Mary Regev confirmed the announcement a little over an hour ago. Only diplomats and tourists are allowed to leave. Craziness. So the mayor of Haifa.
There's diplomacy going on in Geneva right now with the Iranian foreign minister, some European foreign ministers. President Trump right now has said he's going to wait 2 weeks before he makes a decision what to happen next. What are you hoping for from these different diplomatic pieces?
Peace. That the peace treaty will come out of it.
And President Trump waiting 2 weeks to make a decision. What do you think about that?
It's too much.
Why?
Because we have no time. You see what's going in the middle time.
There's more destruction.
They have to sit now and negotiate and design a treaty. It's not a big deal. And do it.
In your understanding, President Trump's analysis of what's going on is giving time for diplomacy, it appears. Are you happy with what you hear from him? Because one day it seems to be he's leaning towards the military action, another day he seems to be leaning towards diplomacy. What's your sense?
A fixed answer I can't get from Trump. And this bothers me
Why?
because I like stability.
So that was the mayor of Haifa saying, we're hoping for a peace treaty. We have no time. Look at this destruction. They must sit, negotiate, and design a treaty now. It's not a big deal. Just do it. So the mayor of Haifa was going through it, 6-7 months ago when this happened. Israelis aren't used to this. They're used to, Iron Dome and, having a monopoly of war, or, the whole Western world is used to having a monopoly of war, having the biggest, best weapons to use against people of color and people that they want to colonize. But the tables have turned here, and Israel they tried their best to cover up the destruction that was happening. And, they wanted to block all pictures and videos of all the damage and destruction that happened as a result of the 12-day war. And a lot of their military and sensitive intelligence infrastructure, they put in residential areas or business like districts, like right smack dab in the middle. So if you hit them, it's just like, oh, they're targeting civilians. They want this to happen. It's like they designed it because they want those headlines in case anybody ever resists, right? So moving on. Okay, so we'll keep going.
There's diplomacy going on.
So we got a couple other clips. The other one is from, what is this? India Today Global. Let's listen to what some international voices have to say. Like I said, don't always listen to Western voices for everything. You're always going to get, you're going to end up being sympathetic to colonizing everybody. All right. Listen to what the colonized have to say sometimes. Get some perspective.
Day and night, Israeli skies are lit. Israel's Iron Dome is overwhelmed. Every day, Iranian missiles are breaching. The missile defense systems causing devastation. Social media is ablaze with images of Iranian missiles streaking in unpredictable patterns, evading the much vaunted Iron Dome and David's Sling systems. Explosions light up the horizon as the Sejil missile, used for the first time, slam into their targets with surgical precision.
Let's check out the next one.
For all its firepower, for all its threats, and for all the global headlines it commands, the United States of America still couldn't bring Iran to its heels. Even with bunker busters, airstrikes, and backing of its allies and Israel, Trump failed to break Tehran's will. The Islamic Republic didn't fold. It fired back. So how did one of the most heavily sanctioned nations stand tall against the superpower's roar? And what's the inside story of the ceasefire between Israel and Iran? It's now being called the 12-day war. Between June 13th and 24th, West Asia plunged into chaos. Israel bombed Iranian cities, nuclear sites, and command centers. Iran responded by raining missiles on Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Then the US jumped in, claiming it dealt a devastating blow to Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Yet, Iran struck back, boldly, directly, and publicly. If Washington brought its biggest guns to scare Tehran, why did the Islamic Republic keep firing? In a region already soaked in tension, June 2025 detonated a new kind of war. Israel's warplanes lit up Iranian skies, hitting cities as deep as Mashhad. Not content with attacking military installations, Israeli bombs tore through oil depots and government compounds. The devastation was real. Civilian neighborhoods reduced to rubble, bodies pulled from collapsed mosques. Iran didn't flinch. Instead, it retaliated with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones, hammering Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem. Civilian casualties mounted, emergency services scrambled, air raid sirens became the soundtrack of summer in Israel. And then came the United States of America, Trump's America. True to form, didn't bother with warnings or red lines. It dove headfirst into the firestorm. US bombers hit Iranian nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Trump proclaimed massive destruction, tweeting that America had obliterated Iran's nuclear capability. But as smoke cleared, it became evident that Tehran wasn't panicking. It was calculating. Iranian officials swiftly discredited the attack's impact. They revealed that Fordo had been evacuated long ago. A key advisor, Mehdi Mohammadi, scoffed, and I quote, "You cannot bomb knowledge. In other words, blow up a lab and we'll just rebuild it. The nuclear know-how is in our scientists' heads, not in your crosshairs."
Intercepting our missiles and to not allow our missiles to reach to Israel. Of course, infrastructure is anyway. We were expecting such this, and we were ready. You know, first of all, Iranian nuclear facilities are peaceful, and where all Iranian nuclear activity, nuclear facilities were under subject to the intensive inspection of the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So, but at the same time, they claimed and they launched such this. You know, still
All right, that might be the end of that. So let's move on. And I mean, I know this doesn't mean anything now. A sitting U.S. president threatening to assassinate another world leader, especially after what happened to Maduro last month. But again, this was back in June 2025. So let's listen to what Danny has to say. So Danny said Trump is now leaving the G7 due to the situation in the Middle East after threatening the entire population of Tehran to evacuate. The U.S. is gearing up to wage a catastrophic war that will imperil all of humanity after 20 months of facilitating genocide. And it's crazy. 7 months later, this tweet still rings true. And Trump said Iran should have signed the deal. I told them to sign. What a shame and a waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So now they're back to nukes. Now this go around, they're talking about, again, they're moving the goalposts, and now it's about their missiles, right? So you just can't have anything. They just don't want you to be able to defend yourself against their military might, and they don't want you to be able to resist. I think that's the essence of white supremacy. They want you to be in a position where you just cannot resist, right? So he says, I said it over and over again, everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. I mean, he might as well just retweet that or re-true social that, whatever they call it over there, for today, like 114.26, because it just rings true. And then SL Kathan, Trump says unconditional surrender. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but it's safe there. We are not going to take him out, at least not for now. But we still don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he said Trump threatens to kill Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei and demands unconditional surrender from Iran. American imperialism and tyranny are out of control. 100%. I think the great American humbling is coming soon. It's coming. They're going to bite off more than they can chew, and they're not going to be able to bullshit mockingbird media their way out of this shit. And I would love that for them. So here's Brian Berletic. Let's hear what he has to say here.
Actual real reason to wage a war with Iran. It is on the other side of the region, and it poses no threat to Israel or its actual interests. What it does pose a threat to is U.S. primacy over the region, its ability to control the region, to topple governments, assume control over these nations, politically capture them, and use them to further its influence both over the region and around the world. And I'm going to play this clip for you of Steve Bannon and General Mike Flynn openly talking about what this is really all about. Let's listen.
China. That's what I want your audience to understand. So a couple of things. Israel is fighting their war, and we are, in fact, supporting it. And it's really protecting Western civilization from a psychotic regime that wanted nuclear weapons and was very, very close to having them. Number two, we have to allow Israel to finish the job that when it does, as it is in the midst of finishing this job, and it's going to take a little bit, it will allow the United States to fully shift to focusing on China. The third thing is there's a positive, this is really important, a positive U.S. relationship with an Iranian regime. So whatever the regime is that rises up out of the ashes, if we have a positive relationship with that regime, that really benefits the United States of America, particularly against China, and it weakens China. Number four, a victory by Israel. Okay, I'm not talking about American troops and all this other stuff, but a victory by Israel. That it really allows us the expansion. It allows us sort of the expansion of the Abraham Accords right? This is a signature Trump policy. Steve, you're very familiar with that. Signature Trump policy. So it allows an expansion of that. Number 5, the defeat of Iran and stabilizing that region. Stabilizing, because Iran is the most destabilizing country in that region right now. Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, et cetera, et cetera. They control all of Iraq right now, other than Kurdistan. So I want people to understand that. Just look at the statement that was put out by the Iraqi prime minister today. It's unbelievable. Number 6, establishing, or this victory, a victory by Israel establishes the percent, if not the reality, of U.S. global dominance and certainly Israeli dominance in that region.
So that is what the policy papers laid out years ago. That is what people are now, as the mask falls off, that is what they are saying this is all about. It has nothing to do with the nuclear program, has nothing to do with some perceived threat. Iran is opposing U.S. hegemony in the region. It needs to be removed as an obstacle so the U.S. can control the region, politically control the region's foreign policy, cut their ties and their cooperation with China to isolate China so that the U.S. can then work on subjugating China as well. Same goes for Russia. When Iran
It's one giant game of risk going on, guys. So Brian Beletic here tells us exactly what the main reason for that war was. And here's General Flynn telling you exactly what it was about. So all this freedom, democracy, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, all that other bullshit. Like, Americans, can y'all wake the fuck up, please? Please. So let's move on. Now, Tulsi here says the IC community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. This is what Tulsi says, right? And she says this, and she says it as the DNI to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, right? So let's listen.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapon program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapon.
So now let's listen to what Trump has to say here.
But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon. What she said, I think they're very close to having.
Did you catch that? Did you see the contradiction here? So look, we had Tulsi say that they didn't have a nuclear weapon. And then Trump is like, I don't give a damn what she says. They got one because we need that pretext to go bomb them, right? So here's Tulsi again. Last June, the dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news in a way to manufacture division. So obviously Tulsi has gotten a talking to between that clip and between the previous clip, this footage here of Trump on Air Force One, and then this tweet here. So remember the last tweet, well, I don't even have the date for this. Oh, so March 26th. So March 26, 2025, right, is when she said that about Iran. Now, June 20th, 2025, she just totally, so not, well, 3 months later, 3 months minus 5 days later, this is how she totally changes her stance. The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at a point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months. If they decide to finalize the assembly, President Trump has been clear that can't happen, and I agree. She just totally switched it up. She completely switched it up from what she said in March, three months earlier, right? So obviously she got a talking to, and this is why I tell people, like, when you get into these spaces, when you get elected into office, you're not going in there to change shit. You're going to become part of the fucking swamp. You're going to be part of the machine. You know, they'll, whatever dirt they got, like, hey, look, we know where your kids go to school. We know where your family is. You know, like, listen, I think this is what happens up there. You know what I mean? We don't see the folks who are really in charge. These are nameless, faceless people. You know? No war with Iran, Tulsi says. Get our troops out of Iraq and Syria now. And she said that on January 5th, 2020. What happened to you, Tulsi? CNN, the U.S. has strengthened its military posture in the Middle East amid unrest. Here's what assets they've deployed. So, how the U.S. has shifted military jets and ships in the Middle East. AP. The New York Times, the U.S. military is pulled back into the Middle East wars. The strikes on Iran ushered in a period of high alert as the Pentagon braced for almost certain retaliation against American forces in the region. So it's always the U.S. that has to retaliate when the U.S. is the aggressor. You see how they always frame it that way? This is why you have to think critically and don't just take shit at face value. U.S. is always the victim. So quick sidebar. The more things change, the more they stay the same. You know? So Tulsi during the 2020 presidential campaign.
President Trump says that he doesn't want war with Iran, but that's exactly what he wants. Because that's exactly what Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu, Al-Qaeda, Bolton, Haley, and other neocons and neolibs want. That's what he puts first, not America.
Kamala during the 2024 presidential.
Just for those who may have forgotten, Iran is a destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East, and today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact. As I have said, I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist militia. My commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering. And let us be clear, Iran is not only a threat to Israel, Iran is also a threat to American personnel in the region. We will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend U.S. forces.
If Iran was a threat to American personnel in the region, why did you have American personnel in the region? Oh, if they were that scary and they were that much of a threat, why do we have American bases surrounding Iran?
And interest against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay, this attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
What do you see? What do you know, ladies and gentlemen?
See, does not matter who you choose. War is bipartisan. It is one big purple party. You cannot vote to not go to war. It's inevitable, regardless of who you vote for. Okay, just wanted to put that out there. And here's Kamala again. So Primo Radical, crazy how Dems are now just pretending like Kamala Harris was a peace candidate. She even suggested Trump would be weaker on Iran than she would be. Saying, quote, when Donald Trump was president, he let Iran off the hook after Iran and its proxies attacked U.S. bases and American troops. So Harris to Jewish voters, all options are on the table to stop Iran from going nuclear. In pre-election high holidays call, U.S. Vice President says diplomatic solution still preferable to keep Islamic Republic from the bomb. Charges Trump won't stand by Israel. So they just like, so the Democrats and Republicans are like, listen, let's have a contest of who can suck Zio dick the longest or whatever. That's all they did. They're vying for position. Like, please, Zios, please donate to my campaign. I'll be the bigger slave. What the fuck is this? Here's a clip from Breaking Points. Dems being faux resistance, per usual. Oh, I love this. So let's listen to what they have to say here. I love when folks call out the Democratic Party for being fake resistance. 100% of the time. Always enjoyable. Let's listen.
Why don't we move on to the Democrats here to talk about their reaction?
Yeah, so completely pathetic in many regards, especially from the leadership. Not going to say there haven't been any good reactions, and I think the base so far has really showed up in a positive way. But even the people who, like I'm about to show you, Adam Schiff, who want to oppose this war because they don't like Trump, they frame it in all this like procedural garbage. Like what I'm really outraged about is you didn't give me the proper briefing before this happened. Or this is like, that's the worst one. The next level up is the war powers resolution, which by the way is important. It's important to have that vote and get everybody on the record. But guys, just say you're against war. It's really not that freaking hard. Here in any case is Adam Schiff doing his whole like, they didn't give me the briefing. And that's what I'm really upset about. Let's take a listen.
The failure to brief Democratic lawmakers, the making this just another partisan exercise by the administration when it comes to something as serious as the decision to potentially engage in warfare with another nation, it means that you're not going to have the whole country bought into this, which is a real problem. If everything goes well, then maybe it works out fine in the sense of not being an issue that tears apart the American people. But if things don't go well, if Iran retaliates, if we get in a escalating war with Iran, and you don't have the country bought in because the president didn't seek the approval of Congress, because he didn't make the case to the American people, because he didn't even inform one of the parties in Congress, that's when you have a real problem engaging in warfare on a partisan basis. So a lot of risks here for the country, which, is the reason why you come to Congress in the first place. It's the reason why our Constitution says Congress has the power to declare war, not the president.
Yeah, that's the scandal. He didn't brief you.
He didn't brief you. And that man is a senator now, by the way. It's like disturbing. Andrew Cuomo also out with a sad statement about the process here and how bad the process was. We can put this up on the screen, D2. Going into election day, Iran cannot have nuclear capability. That's number one. So he's validating the frame right out of the gates. And many of these, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries do a similar thing. Iran can't have nuclear capability. That's number one. I don't support the way he did it. Believe he should have consulted Congress. This is Trump saying, I don't have to follow the rules. So he didn't follow the rules. But, he supports like, Iran can't have nuclear. So he completely validates the framing. And then his only quibble is like he didn't quite go about it in the right procedural process way. Just completely ridiculous. Meanwhile, if you want to look for a study in contrast and someone who actually is getting it right, as he did during the Iraq War, one of the few, Bernie Sanders was actually doing one of his rallies, on the Fight Oligarchy tour in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he received the news live while he's up there speaking to the crowd. I think he was about to wrap his speech, and you hear a woman yell out from the crowd, "Trump just bombed Iran," and then Faz Shakir, his aide, runs up with the Trump tweet, and Bernie reads it out. Let's take a listen to the organic crowd reaction at this Bernie Sanders rally. Let's take a listen.
Oh, no, okay, just taking the show.
Let me conclude.
Oh dear God. Oh dear God. Oh dear God. Oh dear God.
This is a statement from Donald Trump. Quote,
Oh dear God.
we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, etc.
And they go on to chant, "No more war." Bernie put out a statement, and listen, guys, this is the way to do it. The headline of the statement is "No war with Iran." Not, they didn't give me a briefing. And he concludes by saying, the American people were lied to about Vietnam with tragic consequences. American people were lied to about Iraq with tragic consequences. The American people are being lied to again today. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. The U.S. faces enormous problems here at home, which we must address. We cannot allow ourselves to be dragged into another Middle East war based on lies. How hard is that to say, Sagar?
Yeah.
How hard is that?
It's not apparently very difficult, but it does show you, Democratic leadership is a joke. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer,
They need to
as Ro Khanna has now
Pathetic.
demonstrated. But that crowd reaction shows you, look, I mean, the opportunity is there for the taking. If you want it.
Okay. Yeah, them's being fake resistance as usual. So I'm gonna skip ahead because I do have a lot here that I want to talk about, leaning into this faux democracy. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna end the sidebar here, in the interest of time, and keep it on Iran. So moving forward. So Trump said he would then decide whether to go to war. Okay, so we know that. So then what I'm told is coming in Iran. Okay. So Seymour Hersh scoop. Seymour Hersh has been hit or miss lately. Actually, a little bit more missed than he has been hit. But you can tell he's just been getting sources from the deep state, just like giving him, because even some of the stuff that he's. Anyways, I could probably do a whole video on Hersh's recent output, all on its own. But what he says here is that on June 19th, Hersh published a detailed report via his Substack newsletter claiming that US B-2 bombers and naval platforms were preparing a coordinated assault on Iran's underground nuclear sites on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. The piece cited named sources in the intelligence community, as Hersh's pieces always do, who warned that the operation was imminent and that being conducted with minimal oversight from Congress or America's NATO allies. So then on the night of June 21st, 2025, U.S. forces did strike Iran. So this is NBC News. U.S. strikes Iran nuclear sites. The first time the U.S. has attacked Iran is a major escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran. Why would it be a major escalation between Israel and Iran when the U.S. did it? I don't know. It just kind of reinforces to me that Israel is just a U.S. state. It really is. I think of it as the first state. Delaware is number 2, and the 52nd state would be Ukraine. Think about it. All right, so here are the locations of Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. You can see it there, right? So remember, nuclear weapons are a pretext. The goal is and always has been regime change, right? And also remember, the objective is to goad Iran into attacking the U.S. directly and triggering an overreaction to justify a major U.S. intervention. They put this stuff in their policy papers, okay?
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, put in their country in the midst of all these U.S. bases. How dare they? The bully of the Middle East, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's have another sidebar real quick. Let's look here. So international humanitarian law. So Article 56, protection of works and installations containing dangerous forces. So just a reminder, the NPT guarantees the right of all signatories, including Iran, to develop nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. That's Article 4, okay? Also, the NPT places obligations on nuclear armed states like the United States not to use or threaten force against peaceful nuclear programs or non-nuclear weapon states like Iran, as long as they are in compliance with the treaty, which they have been. Attacking Iran's nuclear sites while they are under IAEA inspection and used for peaceful purposes would be considered a violation of international law. Just putting that out there. Okay, quick sidebar at the end. Okay, so the U.S. is not upholding international law. Okay, the rules-based order is not international law. That's just the U.S. saying what we say goes. We make the rules and you follow our orders. All right, here's Keir Starmer. Iran's nuclear program is a grave threat to international security. Okay, okay, bro. Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and the U.S. has taken action to alleviate that threat. The situation in the Middle East remains volatile and stable. In the region is a priority. We call on Iran to return to the negotiating table and reach a diplomatic solution to end the crisis. They always say that. When Iran did go to the negotiating table, the U.S. reneged. Soon as Trump 1 came into office. It's just like, it's no point even like negotiating with these people. They're untrustworthy. They're non-agreement capable, as the Russians say. And they really are. They're totally non-agreement capable.
And just try and whack it. Yes, this is good. And again, that's it. And again, don't breathe. Relax.
That's Keir Starmer showing you what'll happen, Iran, if you don't follow his dictates. Weak ass. Here's Kaya Kallis. She's the gift that keeps on giving, man. Fantastic follow on Twitter. She's just a total airhead. Iran must not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, as it would be a threat to international security. I urge all sides to step back, return to the negotiating table, and prevent further escalation. EU foreign ministers will discuss the situation tomorrow. So again, everybody gets a memo saying you must tweet about this and you must have this position, and they say yes, sir, and they go in and have their staff do the tweet. That's how this all works, y'all. Donald Trump is not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MEGA. Make Iran great again, I guess. And here's Mr. Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the last son of Shah of Iran, speaks during a press conference about the situation in Iran and the need to support Iranians in Paris, France, June 23rd. He's also reared his stupid head. I think, what is he living in, Indianapolis or Indiana or some shit like that? Just this month in January 2026, because we have Iran protests now that are totally instigated. You know, this is total NED / color revolution nonsense. The Iranian government seems to have got everything under control, but the propaganda the last couple weeks has been insane. And of course, everybody sees through it. The West is just done. Nobody believes their bullshit no more. I mean, you're just an idiot if you do. But yeah, the Shah's son, that's the Shah. He kind of looks just like his dad. He does look just like his dad. And the Juan Guaido of Iran is who he is. Okay? So now here's J.D. Vance. Breaking, U.S. VP J.D. Vance. If Iranians attack us, they're going to be met with overwhelming force. We did not attack the nation of Iran. Trump just fucking bombed them, dude. What are you talking about? We did not attack any civilian. We didn't attack them, is saying that we didn't bomb any civilian targets. So attacking you is okay, but as long as we don't bomb civilian targets, then we can say that's attack. That's not attacking you. We didn't even attack military targets outside of the 3 nuclear weapons facilities. All right, dude. Inside Trump's decision, the Times pieced together the days and hours leading up to Donald Trump's decision to strike Iran. It's a story of diplomacy, deception, and a secret that almost got out. Look at the New York Times glazing. Liberal media, they love Trump whenever he carries out some colonizer shit. That's what this shit is all about. They'll love him as long as he does this type of stuff. The empire is bipartisan. Once again, you see the evidence right in your face. So check this out. Which path in here, and this report is very much worth reading. This is from the Brookings Institute, It's an analysis paper, and it came out in June 2009. Okay? So I'm going to pull some excerpts from this, and let's see how much it predicates the reality we live in today. All right, so look at this. The last paragraph of page 84. The truth is that these all would be challenging cases to make. For that reason, and here's what I want you to pay attention to, it would be far more preferable if the United States could cite an Iranian provocation as justification for the airstrikes before launching them. Clearly, the more outrageous, the more deadly, the more unprovoked the Iranian action, the better off the United States will be. Of course, it would be very difficult for the United States to goad Iran into such a provocation without the rest of the world recognizing this game, which would then undermine it. They're showing you and telling you how deceitful they want to be. They intend to be, that they are, basically, right? So now let's keep moving. All right. So now this is the last paragraph of page 85. Now look what they say here. All right. This suggests that this option might benefit from being held in abeyance until such time as the Iranians made an appropriately provocative move, as they do from time to time. And here's where I want you to pay attention. In that case, it may be less determined policy to employ airstrikes and instead more of an opportunistic hope that Iran would provide the United States with the kind of provocation that would justify airstrikes. Okay? So, again, I just want to remind you, the West is always the victim. Perpetual claims of victimhood while clearly being the aggressor. What are they discussing here? They're discussing how we can attack Iran, but we want to make the world think that Iran attacked us unprovoked. So we want to do something to them to provoke them, but not have that blow up in the media. And then when they respond, have that be the catalyst to say, hey, they hit us first. We're under attack. We're the victim. They did the same thing with Operation framed Iran retaliating against Israel, bombing the Iranian consulate in Syria as the first of the infractions, I should say. They pretended that that was the first go of things. It wasn't. They bombed the consulate, and then Iran responded. Watch part 1 of Through Iraq and Iran. All right. That goes through all of that. But I just want to reiterate here how the West always start the clock where they can be the victim. So they totally erase from the consciousness that they struck the Iranian consulate in Damascus. So they don't report that, but they report Iran's response to that, and they pretend that was the first blow. That's how they trick you into thinking that they're the victim. And you see it right here. They explain it right here in the Brookings Institute paper. They explain it right here. Trump Truth Social. So Trump Truth Social. We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yeah, once we're done bombing, now is the time for peace. The U.S. is just an embarrassment to planet Earth. It just is. Quick sidebar. All right, we're going to define a term. Okay.
Ready to assist you. Pee-wee. Morning, Conky. What's today's secret word?
Today's secret word is perfidy. So what is perfidy? Let's define it. Perfidy is a legal and moral term that means deliberately deceiving someone by pretending to negotiate or act in good faith while secretly planning to betray them, usually for military or strategic advantage. Is that not what the U.S. did? In a twist, U.S. diplomacy served as cover for Israeli surprise attack. U.S. negotiations with Iran aimed at curbing Tehran's nuclear program were widely seen as an important way to preserve regional peace. They ended up being the perfect cover for a surprise Israeli attack. Inside Trump's decision, again, the Times pieced together the days and hours leading up to President Trump's decision to strike Iran. Liberal media glazing Donald Trump. What happened to Trump resistance? End of the quick sidebar. So let's move on. Iran responds to U.S. attack of its nuclear facilities by bombing Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Okay. So again, we had the consulate bombing. We had Iran respond. We had the 12-day war. Israel got destroyed. The U.S. came in and bombed the 3 nuclear sites. I'm not convinced that really happened. It could have. Reports were that they weren't totally destroyed. Reports were that they were. Total fog of war. Whenever it's like that, I think. And then Trump just declared victory and just said, you know, we're out of the airspace. And I don't know. It seems sus to me. It really does. But we know this happened in Iran again, just like they did with the Al-Assad Air Base. They made sure that the U.S. personnel knew that they were going to strike. It was more just a light show than anything. You know what I mean? But they really didn't try to destroy anything. And everything of value was already removed because they warned them that this was going to happen. It's gotta be scary, man. I had to call my peoples in Doha, like, yo, y'all good? Even though, like, you know, I don't think they were really in danger. Still, you never know. Can always be accidents and with civilian consequences. So. Yeah, it had to be unnerving for all those folks. Like, and when I stay in Doha, I stay near them all, so I know like how scary this probably would have been for me too. Even though I probably also would have thought it was cool. I don't know, but yeah. Let's move on. Trump Truth Social. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which was expected, and have very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, and 1 was set free because it was headed to a non-threatening direction. I'm pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten all out of their systems, and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. This country is a clown show, and honestly, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Trump said Iran's nuclear sites were obliterated, but questions remain about enriched uranium. Inspectors should be allowed to account for the stockpiles of uranium, including, most importantly, the 400 kilogram enrichment of 60%, the head of the UN nuclear watchdog said. Now, why would the Iranians let the IAEA in again when it's pretty obvious that they are compromised here? If I were them, I would withdraw from the NPT. I would withdraw from it. Satellites show damage of Iran's nuclear program, but experts say it's not destroyed. Trump claims Iran nuclear sites totally destroyed, but that clashes with Vance and experts. Yes, I don't know about this, Trump. I don't know. We had that tweet, and then this. In twist, U.S. diplomacy served as cover for Israeli surprise attack.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire We had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
So yeah, just wanted to show y'all that in rapid succession. So, you know, this is what perfidy is all about, right? They, talk about wanting peace and like they want to negotiate. Then you have a negotiation, but during the negotiation, they're planning to strike you. Perfidy. And you have Mike Pompeo there say, we lie, we cheat, we steal. We had entire training courses showing them how to do that. The United States, I would say the entire Western world, is non-agreement capable and they are not trustworthy. All they want to do is colonize you and steal your shit. Moving on. So we got Crystal Ball here from Breaking Points, made a good point. So let's see what she says.
Which one is it? Can we hold on that point? Because I want people to really think about this. I want you to think about the way that the Iranians have been portrayed in mass American media, certainly my entire life, as this Nazi-esque, belligerent regime that the moment they got a nuke was going to come and blow up New York City, right? That's how we're supposed to understand them. But not only in this conflict, okay, let's be really clear. The Iranians are the ones that de-escalated and created the possibility of de-escalation. Because our actions of dropping a dozen bunker buster bombs on their nuclear facilities, our actions were incredibly inflammatory and escalatory. Their reaction to that was to tell us, hey, listen, we got to do something in response to this. But here's where it's going to be. Here's when it's going to be. So we can just do a performative strike that is not going to actually cause any damage, which it didn't, and certainly no casualties, which it also didn't, so that we have a chance at, taking the tensions down. Incredibly, look, I mean, I'm not sure it was the right decision. In fact, I think if there's any critique strategically, just tactically, of the Iranian government, it's actually that they've been too weak in response to provocations, especially the provocations from Israel, and also the, provocations from Trump in his first term when he assassinated Qasem Soleimani. What he learned from that is there's no price to be paid for messing with them. And so that's, if anything, tactically, that would be the critique of them. And yet we're supposed to believe that they are hell-bent on getting a nuclear weapon and that the second they do, they're going to drop it on Kansas or Missouri or New York City or whatever. This is preposterous. It's total and complete nonsense. The people have been behaving like the biggest maniacs, psychopaths, and completely rogue regime that do actually have a secret nuclear program are the Israelis. They are the provocateurs here. Now listen, Trump does not get off the hook. He decided that he wanted to engage with Israel in this incredibly stupid, foolish, dangerous game. And now he's pretending, to your point about the fakery, he's pretending, we obliterated their nuclear program. Okay.
Look,
if
that's what he needs. That's what he needs. Let's
in order to get sure. But the reality is, what have we, those of us who are living in the real world, what have we actually gained? What we've actually gained is we provided more incentive for the Iranians to pursue a nuclear weapon. We have allowed Israel to, you give those people an inch, they take a mile. If you think this is it and it's over and it's done, you think Bibi Netanyahu is about to wake up today and say, regime change in Iran, I don't really need that. I'm good. Now that they dropped their bunker busters and the nuclear program is not at all decimated, I'm good. I can just sit back and it'll be fun. No, he and his allies, of which he has many in this town, as Lord knows we've seen, and the media, he and his allies will keep pushing. There will be another, Iran violated the ceasefire, now we have to bomb this. This will not be the last time because they roll out this playbook every single time. I don't know if there's ever been a ceasefire agreement that Israel has agreed to that they haven't violated.
In Lebanon, exactly. And look, I mean, this is again why this whole MAGA cope is driving me crazy, because what you're watching here is not some grand master plan. It is utterly schizophrenic. And we know this. I even know it.
So yeah, great point there. So let's move on. New York Times. Officials concede they don't know the fate of Iran's uranium stockpile. So both Vice President J.D. Vance and Rafael Grossi, the head of International Atomic Energy Agency, acknowledged questions about the whereabouts of Iran's stockpile of near bomb grade nuclear material. This was 6/22/2025. All right. And they say here, the highlighted text, the Iranians have made it clear they are not interested in having conversations with the United States, accusing Washington of deceiving Tehran during the last set of negotiations while planning the air attack. We got confirmation of that in the New York Times and in that other article I just shared with you. And that's why we went over what perfidy is. The U.S. admitted to doing this. You can't trust the United States at all. So Mearsheimer was on Breaking Points as well. And I always like to listen to what Mearsheimer has to say. So let's listen to him too.
With regard to our reputation, it's clear that you want to have nuclear weapons. They are the ultimate deterrent. So I think this has done great damage to the nuclear proliferation regime. With regard to our reputation around the world, I mean, the United States is correctly seen as a rogue state. Even in East Asia today, allies like Japan and South Korea are basically condemning us for what we've done. I mean, what can you say about the United States? I mean, first of all, the duplicitous diplomacy here, and then this idea that we have the right just to run around the world attacking countries whenever we see fit. Furthermore, let's not lose sight of the fact that the United States is supporting the Israeli genocide in Gaza. This is much worse than anything that's happening to the Iranians. There's a genocide taking place. The Israelis are executing it, and we're complicit in this. Complicitous. I mean, I think America's reputation is in tatters. Sure, the most powerful state on the planet, and countries have to be very careful in their criticism of us. But I think almost everybody outside of Israel and the United States and a few European leaders understands that the United States is basically out of control.
Let's talk a little bit more about Gaza and how this fits in this picture. I can put E3 up.
This is not in our interest. And of course, this shows you what an albatross Israel is around their neck. So there's no doubt that in terms of basic American grand strategy, this is not good. And if you hypothesize a situation where we're stuck in the Middle East for months on end, this is an even worse situation. With regard to our reputation, I think our reputation has been badly damaged. I think there's no question about that. And I think it will only get worse. And by the way, one thing we haven't talked about is what the consequences will be for Donald Trump on the home front. I mean, Trump is betting that this is sort of a one-and-done operation. We went in, we did the dirty work, we solved the problem, and now we can celebrate, have a victory parade or what have you. I don't think this is the way this one's going to play out.
Yeah.
Don't think the Iranians are going to roll over and play dead. I think we're probably going to have to launch further operations against Iran, military operations, that is, down the road. And there's no evidence that this one is going to be settled quickly. And as I said before, I think the Iranians, if anything, are going to get nuclear weapons, and they're going to continue down the nuclear road. And Trump is going to have egg on his face. It's not going to be a great victory. People are going to question why we did this. And so I think he's going to have problems on the home front as a result of all this.
Totally agree.
Professor.
Yeah, so Reuters, Iran used drug traffickers to stoke trouble in France, says minister. So that was June 22nd, 2025. So whenever they need you to hate somebody, they'll start sending out these local stories and saying, blaming that country for whatever ailments that you're experiencing today. This is a classic Western media trope, right? So that's what it says here. We are currently alternating between everything is China's fault, everything is Russia's fault, everything is Iran's fault. Depending on the current planned war, they pick one for you to be angry at. 100% true, right? So June 22nd, 2025, what was going on? This whole Iran situation was going on. So now, they want you to be mad. So all the headlines are going to be Iran is doing this, Iran is doing that. Oh my God, Iran, be afraid of Iran. Iran is coming to get you. Iran's coming to get you. You better submit to our narrative and be all for bombing Iran because they coming to get you, right? You got to be a fucking idiot to just fall for this shit all the time, man. I swear, I'm just done with Americans who just can't think critically anymore. I really am. You deserve what you got coming to you. And here's Ansar Allah. Yemen is ready to strike all U.S. ships if they attack Iran. If Yemen enters a war, it will only emerge victorious. It has not let the people down in Gaza and will not let down Iran. Ansar Allah has been doing some work. They've been doing some work. You don't want to fuck with them. They chased the United States out of the Red Sea. I actually need to do a deep dive into that. They chased the U.S. out of the Red Sea. Again, who's the threat here? Iran? Look at all these U.S. bases. Your country is on the other side of the planet. Go home. Go the fuck home. This is colonizer behavior. So look at this. So that's the Strait of Hormuz, okay? That's a choke point. So much of the world's energy gets shipped out through there. If the U.S. wants to attack Iran this January or February of 2026, that strait is going to be shut down. And I suggest that's why they made the move on Venezuela that they made, even though it's backfiring because it's going to take billions upon billions and many, many, many years to get the infrastructure up in Venezuela to be pumping out all the energy that they have the potential to. And I don't think anybody wants to invest, any Western countries want to invest because the people are going to make it hard for them to exploit Venezuela's resources. You know, there's a lot of militias in there who are sovereign, who are not putting up with the U.S. bullshit, with any Western bullshit. So, Strait of Hormuz. Now, if they strike Iran and that closes down, we are all going to feel it. And here's the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. That too. Yemen controls that. And they can shut that down whenever they want to and make sure nobody passes. It's controlled by Yemen here, controlled by Iran for the Strait of Hormuz. If Yemen says the Strait of Mandab is closed, then pool's closed. You saw what they were doing during the genocide in 2023 and 2024. They are not playing. Trump posted a Bomb Iran music video with these lyrics. Went to a mosque, going to throw some rocks, time to turn Iran into a parking lot. This is the shit that your president does.
Bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran.
Seeing that clip, how they got getting people to cheerlead empire. Bread and circus people, enjoy it. Okay. And remember this tweet from Trump. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change, Miga? So how do you think of that in context of what you just saw of him tweeting a Bomb Iran video? Remember John McCain? There's probably a throwback to John McCain because he was on stage singing Bomb Iran. These people have a hard on for bombing Iran. They need it to happen. But again, it's because they're all Zio puppets, right? All wanting a greater Israel. They want white people to be the folks who control all those hydrocarbons in the Middle East and to rule over Eurasia so that they can enslave the rest of the world. They write about this all the time. What do you think the Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski was all about? You got to read these things, you know?
The Israeli defense minister, Mr. Katz, he sat down for an interview and he admitted that Israel's goal in all of this, the 12-day conflict, their goal was to take out Khamenei, or at least that was one of their key objectives. Israel sought to kill Iran's Khamenei. According to the defense chief, West Jerusalem would not have needed U.S. permission for the move. Israel, Katz has said, I estimate that if Khamenei had been in our sights, we would have taken him out, Katz told Israel's Channel 13 on Thursday, as cited by Reuters. But Khamenei understood this and went underground to great depths and cut off communication with the commanders who replaced those that were eliminated. So in the end, it wasn't realistic, he added. We wanted to eliminate Khamenei, but there was no operational opportunity, Katz said. Asked whether Israel had sought U.S. approval, he replied, we don't need permission for these things. What an awful precedent that is being set. What an absolutely awful, awful, destructive precedent that is being set. Going after the leaders of countries, the supreme leaders, the religious leaders, the political leaders, whatever. This is just a terrible, terrible precedent that is being set. And for a top Israeli official to say this so openly, publicly, shocking, man. Absolutely shocking. But we knew it, all of us, people watching this video, me and Alexander, other analysts, everyone knew what this conflict was really about. It was not about nuclear weapons. Iran must not get nuclear weapons. It was about regime change. And that was the goal in the first week. Shock and awe, quick strike against Iran and its leadership, its commanders, its scientists, and eventually a quick strike to take out Khamenei in order to achieve the collapse of the government and a regime change. It didn't work. We entered a war of attrition. And that's when Israel started to run low on weapons. And the United States, realizing that Israel was running very, very low on weapons and was not going to be able to defeat Iran in a war of attrition, they both pulled the plug and decided for a ceasefire, call a ceasefire. And then Trump repackaged it as his Nobel Prize winning peace initiative. And there we are. There we are.
All right, we're going to do some more commentary. There are a bunch of different voices. We're going to close out with the commentary. So we're going to go to the Duran again. We're going to go to Laith Maroof again. And then we're going to go to Scott Ritter. He was on the Sabi Sabs show along with Garland Nixon. So let's hear what these folks have to say again, and then we'll wrap up.
Do you know that some of the best people in the world are Iranian? I'm talking about salt of the earth people, cultured, educated. They will take the shirt off, literally take the shirt off their back. They will take the food off their plate. I've been to Iran. I can safely say that 99% of America hasn't. I know these people, not this way I know the Russians, but I'd like to. These are good people. And we sit there, we say the most horrific things about, you know why they shout death to America? Because in 1953, we overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran, Mossadegh, the prime minister, because he just refused to say that Iran oil belongs to the British. And he nationalized it and said, no, it belongs to Iran. And the Brits went, no. And the CIA went, no. And they overthrew him, put the Shah in. And then they spent the next 3 decades helping the Shah build a secret police, the Savak, who tortured and murdered and suppressed the Iranian people. And then when they overthrew the Shah and they took the embassy, they got the documents that we shredded, they pieced them all back together again. They've published a great book with all the CIA documents that document how the United States worked with the Shah to murder the Iranian people. And now you know why they shout death to America. But death to America is a slogan. It's a sort of like a patriotic slogan of, we shall overcome kind of slogan. It doesn't mean death to America. If it did, then they wouldn't have treated me the way they treated me when I was walking the streets of Tehran or Kashan or any other cities that I went to. No, they don't hate Americans. They love Americans. And I'll just say this one last thing.
So I really like that commentary by Scott Ritter, because in the U.S., like, they always want to demonize the people of another country or another place or another part of the world all the time. And like I say, the United Americans, I always say this, I hate to say it, but just in my experience, it's true. Like, Americans are like some of the dumbest people on planet Earth, right? And not only that, Americans are so unique in this way. They can easily be convinced to hate people that they on the other side of the planet that they never met, and they can be convinced to hate places on the other side of the planet that they've never visited. Ain't got a stamp in their passport, but they hating places, hating Iran, hating China, hating this. You ain't never even been there, just because their government tells them to hate it. Dumbest people on the planet. But thankfully, some folks are waking up. All right, so here's more commentary from Jamal, Thomas, and Ruth.
Give me your take on this. From my point of view, if you're Palestine TV, from my point of view, Israel and the U.S. was surprised. They thought that the Iranian government was weaker, where they could overthrow the government in a short, blunt attack using Mossad, CIA, whack jobs internally to the country itself, fifth column, and external attacks and decapitation strikes that did happen. And they found themselves in a war of attrition with a country that was 3 times the size of Iraq. I mean, you're talking about a country of 90 million people versus a country of 8. And they were incapable of dealing the damage necessary in order to stop it. So financially, economically, militarily, they were defeated. They had to stop. And the U.S.'s entry into the war was that threat of, I'm saving my client because my client can't keep going. Israel had been putting out ceasefire offers. Give me your take on that. Do you see it that way? How do you view it?
Well, rationally, the United States and the Zionist colony used all the weapons they have below the nuclear threshold, all the tricks that they've used before on Iran. And the result was that Iran fought back. And, we can take the attacks by Trump as an indicator of really what happened. So let's look at this way. The Zionists attacked Iran. Iran bombed back the colony. They cried. The emperor had to come to save them. But he couldn't use any of his assets on the ground in the region in fear of mass casualties in American soldiers and or the destruction of the oil fields and gas fields that the United States has been looting for the last 80 years and the collapse of those vassal regimes in the Arabian Peninsula. So what did Trump do? He flew B-2 bombers, not from Diego Garcia, because he was scared even Diego Garcia can be reached, the island chain across from India, can be reached by Iran's missiles and can be destroyed. So he flew B-2 bombers with the largest bombs in the cache of weapons that the United States has below the nuclear threshold. He threw 16 out of the 20 that are available to the U.S., those mock bombs. They only have 20 of them in the whole military of the United States. He used 16 of them to attack the nuclear sites of Iran and failed to achieve his objectives. Therefore, he retreated, and Iran had 2 choices in front of it: to whip the behind of the United States and the Zionist colony in front of the whole world and humiliate them further, edging them closer to the use of a nuclear weapon, okay? And or take the win and do a symbolic attack on a base, the largest air base that the United States has outside its territory, in the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, giving everybody a heads up that is coming, where the United States will draw all its soldiers and set up all the air defenses that it can, and then sending 16 missiles, only one of them being a hypersonic strategic missile, and it managed to hit the storage units of the weapons that the U.S. had to leave behind it. It couldn't take all its weapons. It had to only run away with the soldiers. And the jet fuel, storage areas, clearly showing that Iran can destroy all American bases if it wants to in the region. Right. So,
all right. So next we're going to go to the Duran, the two Alexes, and from there we're going to wrap up.
So I have to say, to me, all of this looks like a shambles, something that was done without any proper calculation, with no clear exit strategy prepared. Key figures in the administration, Rubio, Vance, Hegseth, have been trying to draw a line under this and to give the president an exit strategy. And he's continuing to listen to Netanyahu and the neocons and all of those people around him. And he's undermining his own administration, alienating his own supporters, and is now clearly on the escalator, because it doesn't seem to me that there's any course open to him now, other than to press on with this probably unachievable objective of attempting regime change in Iran. A disaster in every respect.
Well, the longer this goes and the more the regime the government in Iran is intact, the more they're winning.
Yes.
The more they are winning. If the government can hold, they are winning. They're defeating the U.S., they're defeating Israel, they're defeating the greatest military operation, Trump said, in all of history, is actually perhaps the most embarrassing military operation in all of history. Trump spent all that money to hit a freaking rock, to hit a mountain. Everything was evacuated. Most everything was evacuated, or at least the important stuff was definitely evacuated.
Yes.
And they don't know where it is.
No.
Before all of this, you had the JCPOA signed, approved.
Yeah.
All is good. Trump tears it up, tries to negotiate a new deal. You still have the IAEA going in there. Whatever reports the IAEA files, the IAEA, no different than the ICC, no different than the OPCW, whatever, they're all compromised. We know the histories of these organizations and the stories that they put out in order to get to wars. But still, they were able to go in. They were able to look at what's going on. They knew where everything was. Now, you don't have any of that.
Exactly.
You have none of that. You don't even know where it is.
Yeah.
What a debacle. What an embarrassment for the president of the United States, for Trump. What a freaking embarrassment.
Yeah.
What a joke of a decision he made. Really, what a joke of a decision he made. I'm surprised that more people are not running with the story that the uranium is gone.
No, I know.
It's gone. It's missing. Is it in Iran? It's like you said, is it in Iran? Is it with Kim Jong-un? Maybe he's looking after it, smiling, laughing. maybe it's in China. Yep. Maybe it's in Russia. Who knows? Who knows where it is? What a freaking debacle. My theory on Trump, Alexander, looking at everything, taking a step back, and I agree with you, Vance and Hegseth, definitely Vance, because he was on TV saying no regime change. He said it like 4 times. Hegseth said it like 4 or 5 times as well. Yeah. And Trump threw him under the bus. Rubio has been kind of back and forth. He's wishy-washy, but okay, he's a neocon light type of guy. He's playing both sides. Anyway, Trump definitely threw Tulsi Gabbard under the bus. Tulsi Gabbard, though, she came back and supported Trump. Okay, he threw Vance under the bus. He threw Hegseth under the bus because they said no regime change, man. Direct quote. But I think Trump's doing this because he wants war.
Yeah,
that's the only explanation I can think of.
Yes.
Every de-escalation, every opportunity to de-escalate or to find an off-ramp to this conflict or this crisis, Trump himself has sabotaged.
Yes.
Trump wants war.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, there is no other explanation here. He's clearly decided to commit himself to regime change in Iran. He's never liked the regime in Iran. We've always known that. But he's decided to do that because he's now focused. He's now completely accepted this view that the Iranian regime must go, and he wants war with Iran. There is no other explanation for what he's doing because, as you absolutely rightly said, he's not just going up the regime change escalator. He is running up it. He is absolutely running up it, and he is destroying the credibility of his own officials.
Deliberately sabotaging them.
Deliberately sabotaging them. He threw her under a bus. He discredited her. He humiliated her publicly. He forced her, in effect, into, a humble, I thought, embarrassing and humiliating retraction of everything that she had previously said, because clearly she's trying to be loyal to him. Vance has been astonishingly loyal to him. He's been trying to help Trump with, Trump's own base, which is getting increasingly angry and upset about this. He's now basically discredited, made Vance look ridiculous. And one can't almost avoid the sense that Trump is doing this on purpose, that he's now deliberately trying to undermine and discredit his own core supporters, the people who were backing him before, that he's somehow turned against them and has turned against them completely. He's gone against Tucker Carlson. He's gone against, presumably, sooner or later, Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of those people. He seems to be determined now to press on with this war because that is the only inevitable, logical destination to which this can go. To repeat again your point, The uranium has vanished. If you look at the statements that the Chinese and the Russians have been making, they are beyond angry about all of this. They did not want, and they do not want, Iran to acquire a nuclear weapons capability. They are defenders of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, of which Russia was one of the original signatories and one of the original creators. And Russia, by the way, has always abided by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They have never been involved or ever been accused of being involved in nuclear proliferation. And they're saying that every aspect of that treaty has now been exploded, that an attack has been made on nuclear enrichment sites, which all the reports said were peaceful, that the agency whose role it is to enforce and manage the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the IAEA, now lies completely discredited, completely compromised. And of course, Iran had the most intrusive inspections of any country in the world by the IAEA. And as of now, as of today, as of in fact a week ago, there are no inspections by the IAEA in any part of Iran anymore. So it is a disaster if Iran were to choose to go ahead with a nuclear weapons program. It now has all the resources, all the technology, all the enriched uranium. In order to do that, there's no inspection regime in place. The way to go ahead and acquire a nuclear weapon is completely open. And with Donald Trump talking about regime change, one can easily see, one can easily imagine why the Iranians might decide that the time has now come for them to do it.
They're justified now to do it because they've been attacked. Yeah, they're justified now, and everyone is saying, look at what happened to Gaddafi. When he gave up his, I think with Gaddafi it was biological and chemical weapons, but still, he gave up his weapons. Look what happened to him. And look at Kim Jong-un.
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
I mean,
absolutely.
I should comment on that. Can you also comment?
So yeah, that was the Duran. I always love their commentary. So yeah, that'll be the end. Part 2, I threw a rock in Iran. There will be a part 3, believe me. It seems like it's going to get kinetic again now in January 2026, February 2026. I'll keep an eye on it, but definitely something is about to happen. So guys, please like, share, subscribe. Try to be a little bit more consistent, or a lot of bit more consistent in 2026. So yeah, please share these videos. We got an obligation to educate the community, an obligation for liberation. So until next time, folks, talk soon.